Hey there, and welcome. In a world that's just buzzing with notifications and this endless stream of data, how do we actually stay connected to ourselves? Well, today, we're going to dive into a beautiful story called Gündüz Yüzü that explores exactly that, how we can build a bridge between our crazy digital lives and our inner, more authentic experience. So, let's get into it.
Right, so the entire story really hangs on this one powerful idea. I want you to think of yourself as a traveler, moving back and forth between two worlds, the massive, external world of information out there, and the equally vast internal landscape of your own soul. The real challenge, and honestly the goal, is to learn how to navigate both of those worlds with some sense of harmony and wisdom.
And our journey kicks off in this really special place, a neighborhood they call Dayface. It's here that three very different people come together, all trying to find this exact harmony. This is the spot where the digital world smacks right into the natural world.
Now, what's so cool about this is the name itself. The people who live here are called Gündüz Yüzlü, which literally means with daylight face. It's not just a name. It points to a whole way of being, open, honest, and completely in sync with the rhythms of nature, always up to greet the sun. It's just a perfect metaphor for the kind of clarity they're all looking for. So, let's meet our traveler, shall we? First, we have the uncle, who's sort of the wise mentor of the group. Then there's the nephew, a young, ambitious entrepreneur. And finally, there's Roger, a digital ethicist. They've all retreated to these three simple cabins right by a lake, and each one of them is bringing their own inner world and their own big questions along with them.
The second the nephew gets there, he's faced with a struggle that I think we all know way too well. His thumb just automatically, instinctively drifts towards a social media app. It's that digital twitch, right? That habit. But then he catches himself. He consciously puts the phone down and opens up a real physical notebook instead. And that small act right there is the very first step on his journey. And what he writes down just perfectly captures the heart of his problem. He jots down this powerful paradox. In an age where we have infinite information at our fingertips, he feels this deep lack of self-knowledge. And he has this light bulb moment where he realizes that admitting that, being that vulnerable, might just be the real starting point for finding any actual wisdom.
Okay, so from the cabin, the scene shifts and we head outside to this small, natural spring nearby. And this simple little part of the landscape, it ends up being the source of the very first major philosophical lesson of their whole retreat. The uncle is just watching the spring, and he shares this incredibly simple but profound piece of wisdom. See, the spring isn't some huge rushing river. It's small, but its flow is constant, it's steady, and because of that, it sustains all the life around it. What he's really saying is that small, consistent acts of goodness have a much bigger impact than these grand, one-off gestures. And Roger, being the ethicist, he immediately puts this into modern terms. He calls it sustainable goodness. And he points out the really crucial part: this is the hardest kind of goodness to practice. Why? Because it requires consistency, it requires dedication, not just some fleeting moment of inspiration. So, after looking at this spring outside, the uncle brilliantly turns the conversation inward. He starts to focus on what he says is the first step to self-knowledge, and that's getting a handle on the tricky nature of our own ego. He uses this great metaphor. He compares the ego to a shadow. It's not good or bad on its own, but its size and its shape change depending on how much light you shine on it. If you leave it in the dark, well, it can really deceive you. So, the key here is to shift your whole perspective. Stop trying to own your ego or control it. Instead, see it as something that's been entrusted to your care, a part of you that you need to manage with wisdom. And check this out. Here's a perfect, super practical example of that shift. Saying "I did it" is about taking responsibility. That's healthy, right? Accountability. But just add one little word, "I alone did it," and boom, everything changes. That's the ego twisting reality just to glorify itself. That tiny distinction reveals a massive difference in your mindset. So, building on this idea of moving beyond just me, Roger zooms the lens way out. He expands the view from the individual ego to the interconnectedness of, everything. And he uses the landscape around them as the lesson.
He calls this idea we consciousness. And it's so simple when you see it this way. The lake doesn't just exist by itself, it depends on the streams. And the streams depend on the rain, and the rain depends on the clouds. It's this beautiful chain that shows how everything in nature, and in our own lives too, is part of a much larger unseen order. No single part can stand up and claim, "It's all mine."
So, as their first day starts to wind down, all of these different lessons about technology and nature and the ego, they all start to come together, pointing towards one single ultimate purpose, the inner work that's waiting for each of them.
And the uncle makes them a promise. He tells them he has a story for them, a story that's specifically meant to help them with this exact task, clearing the well within. It's this fantastic metaphor for purifying our inner world of all the confusion, the ego, the distractions, so that real wisdom can finally bubble up, just like that little shepherd's spring.
And that really brings us to our final thought for today. This whole journey isn't just for the characters in the story, it's an invitation for us too. It's asking us to take a hard look at our own balance between the digital and the authentic, and to reflect on our own inner landscape. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what is the well within you that needs clearing?